which is let's think about it. So forgive me for the pun, it's a terrible one, I know. But I just wanted to take some people through some safety issues. The water is a very dynamic environment, can be very dangerous when things go wrong. Obviously you just can't walk home, most times you can't swim home either. And with other people, then you're the captain, you're responsible for taking them into the danger and out of it again quite safely. So I would like this to be a series. I've got a few ideas, but what I want to start with today is just to get an introduction into sort of some of the accidents that occur. And these are real accidents I'm going to show you. I've got them from the British Marine Accident Investigation Branch website. They report on registered shipping yachts in the UK. And I've tried to pick out some pretty common ones. So, but first, what I wanted to do was to take you through sort of some categories of accidents that you get some idea of what happens. Now, this is from a investigation or a basic academic report into commercial shipping. So this is ships with a tonnage greater than 100 gross tons. And it's pretty useful, I think, for us is maybe more of the leisure yachting to think about. So they categorize collisions. So this is collisions with other boats. Contact, which is striking or being struck by an external object, but not another ship or the sea bottom. Okay. So if I understand this correctly, well, I've got the example there, drilling rigs, platforms, it could potentially be the dock, navigation markers, etc. And potentially whether you're in tow or not in tow. So I guess if you're towing someone and you stop and they don't and hit the back of you, that could be a contact accident. Grounding, we all know what that is, hit the bottom, can't get off. Fire, explosion, and NASF, which is non-accidental structural failure. So basically that's the structural components in your boat giving up, not being caused by an accident. So, and this is another slide again from the same report. So these are 3 different reports looking at total losses. This is a financial measure by different categories. So the largest one there is foundering. So basically, grounding on the whole. See, fire explosion is pretty big, collision is pretty big, and forgive me, I don't know what the WR strand is, but these are the big boats. These are the captains and the crews that have been supposedly trained professionally, and they do undergo a lot of training, and they still get into trouble. So for people like us who are either weekend boaters or a couple of weeks a year, or we have ambitions to spend more time, we can expect that we're probably not going to be as skilled as some of these commercial people. Potentially we won't be as what's the word? Not as vigilant. Sometimes you do things for too long. You take things for granted. So some of these accidents just caused by human error. But the point is that accidents do happen, and we need to expect it, be prepared for it, and avoid them if we can. So where are we going to go now? I think we go to the website. So this here is, this is their 2018 report. It's worth taking a look. You can just search for MAIB annual report and it will come up. And this goes through all the main incidents during the year, and it's quite good. It's got some summary information, some photos, some statistics, and you go have a bit of fun looking through that. And a lot of boats upside down or underwater. Here are all of them, and there's a really range of them. But then you can also, when you're on the site, you can go there and you can also look for their accident reports. So once you get on the site, I'll drop this into the my goodness, today I can't think. I'll drop this into the description below the video, so you can find it. But you can filter, and for example, recreational craft power, recreational craft sail. That's what I've looked at the power recreational crafts, and you can go through, scroll through here and see the reports. So you've got here 2 pages going back to what is this one, 2010. So basically 10 years of history. Before we go there, I wanted to go back to the little presentation I've got and look at this one here. Look at this is from the 2019 US Coast Guard report, and it gives you, again, some good categorization of accidents. And I'll zoom in. I'm not sure you can see that. I'll read it out. And what I've done, I've just filtered it to really look at anything from 26 foot above. But anybody sort of interested in explorer yachts or anything coastal offshore, you're going to should be at least 26 foot, I imagine, maybe 40 to 65 or over 65. But you can see in all these categories, capsizing, we even have, I'll get rid of these, that doesn't really look great. You've had one yacht over 65 capsizing. These are leisure boats only, no commercial boats. 2 from 40 to 65 foot, 8 from the 26 to 40 foot. Now, from the reports, it's pretty hard to tell what's what. You can see the hull type, there's fiberglass and steel and wood, etc. So you can imagine the steel ones are probably displacement yachts. I imagine there's a lot of speedboats in there, cabin cruisers, sort of things. But you're still seeing some capsizes there. In a future video, I want to look at stability, seaworthiness, and these sort of things. We'll get to that. Carbon monoxide poisoning. So here in this category we have 6 deaths, and I've got some examples I'll show you from the British reports, and just how easy it is to die from this, and also how easy it is to actually prevent it, or at least be aware of it occurring. Here you've got your collisions, fixed objects, floating objects, commercial vessels, governmental vessels, recreational vessels, submerged objects. So as you can see here, the main one is collisions with recreational vessels. Again, without going statistics, we don't know where this are. This could be just bouncing off the dock, or it could be, on the lake, restricted waterways as well. We've got fire explosion. So again, reasonably large number in that. If you're running diesel, diesel is less volatile than petrol. So, the risk of an explosion, well, it shouldn't happen. But if you're running gas on board, then that definitely could happen. So, gas, any sort of gas leak into your boat is potentially fatal, be it carbon monoxide, be it sort of LPG gas, flooding, swamping, grounding, etc. And then we have some other ones here, which we won't go into here, deaths and injuries. So the goal here is to, obviously we want to have a fun day, want to come back alive, don't want to be rescued if possible. If we do, well, that's fine. Just make sure that you're rescued safely. And this one too, this from the report as well. Let's see if I can center it a bit. We have here machinery and equipment, primary contributing factor of accidents and casualties. So this is what causes the accidents or casualties, broken into 2 areas: machine failure, equipment failure. So electrical system failure, engine failure, exhaust system failure, fuel system failure, shift failure. I'm not exactly sure what that is. That could be the gearbox potentially. Steering failure, throttle failure, ventilation system failure, or other. So, and then on the equipment failure, we've got auxiliary equipment failure. Struggling to know what that would be. Onboard navigation aid, sail dismasting, seat broke loose, other, not specified, right? So probably the machinery ones are the more important ones. And without any further ado, let's go look at some examples. So this one, safety warning about carbon monoxide poisoning after the loss of 2 lives on the motor cruiser diversion. Now I'll show you a picture of the motor cruiser diversion. Maybe motor cruiser is a little bit of a grand title. It's a 9-meter motor cruiser. It looks like steel, but 2 people died on board this boat. So 4th of December 2019, 2 men returned to the privately owned motor cruiser, which is moored on the River Alce in York. The diesel-fueled heater had been leaking exhaust fumes into the boat's cabin while they were ashore, and both men were overcome by a high level of carbon monoxide gas and died shortly after they entered the boat's cabins. So that sounds like it was full of carbon monoxide, walked in, and potentially collapsed and died. I don't know a lot about carbon monoxide poisoning. So safety issues. No carbon monoxide alarm was fitted. Number one, so if it does happen, you need the alarm. They're so cheap. Install them, have two, make sure they work. The cabin heater had been installed by the vessel's owner, but the installation had not been professionally checked and no servicing had been carried out. So, installation and maintenance, two key things. So, there you go, probably out for a nice weekend and you don't come home. Not very nice. We'll give you another one. Carbon monoxide poisoning on motor cruiser Vasquez with loss of life 1. So this is a motor cruiser, fiberglass boat. This looks like one of those river cruisers, probably just displacement. I don't think it would be necessarily going fast. So what happened there? At midday, 12th November 2016, the owner of the 7.75 meter motor cruiser Vasquez fell unconscious after becoming overcome by carbon monoxide that had been emitted from failed rubber bellows that formed part of the inboard engine's wet exhaust system. Although rescuers came to his aid, it was not possible to save his life. The boat's engine had not been regularly serviced and there was evidence the exhaust system of the engine had been modified during the boater's life. So, safety lessons, we don't really have root cause analysis, we go into it, but sounds like just poor maintenance there. Things like rubber hoses, etc. Bellows, they can be pretty easily checked to see if they're leaking. And obviously don't change things unless you know what you're doing. But again, quite sad. Another one, carbon monoxide poisoning on board the motor cruiser Love for Lydia with the loss of 2 lives. So there's the motor cruiser. Excuse me. Oh. Okay, so a couple were found deceased on board the motor cruiser, which was moored alongside Roxton Island, River Bure, Norfolk. The couple died from carbon monoxide poisoning. So the source of carbon monoxide was exhaust fumes from the boat's large inboard petrol engines. The engine exhaust emissions contained very high levels of CO even when idling. The boat's habitable spaces were not adequately ventilated. The four-peak cabin's deck hatch and portholes were shut. The boat's occupants were not alerted to danger because the carbon monoxide alarm was fitted. So again, you'd have to probably read the report to get the root cause. I'm a bit surprised that, the ventilation, the engine room ventilation, there should be no exhaust carbon monoxide entering the boat at all. So I'm a little bit curious about this. The habitable spaces were not adequately ventilated. It could be a case there was exhaust coming overboard and then blowing into the boat, but who knows. But again, you've got a carbon monoxide alarm, it's going to go off, you're going to know what's happening, you can do something about it. So quite sad. Sounds like, I don't know, how long they were found, etc. Now, this is an interesting one. Collision between motor yachts Minx and Vision with loss of life 1. So that's one of the boats. You see, fiberglass, a lot of damage forward there. It's crashing. And I'm guessing this is the other boat here, which looks like a steel boat. You can see the damage. Maybe it doesn't come up so well here, but you can see the damage there. So it looks like fiberglass has bumped into the steel boat. See, again, good thing about steel boat, they've lost some layers of paint, etc., but the hull looks pretty much intact, just scratched up. So that would be a relatively inexpensive repair, shall we say, relative to hull damage on a boat this size. And that looks like some pretty nice paint. It's not going to be cheap, but there could be worse. So interesting thing about this was, and we'll get into that. So 25th of May 19, Gibraltar registered motor yacht Vision collided with UK registered motor yacht Minx, which was anchored at Ile Sainte-Marguerite near Cannes, France. Minx's crewman was on the foredeck and there was nothing he could have done to prevent being fatally struck by Vision's bow. And I don't know which boat is which now. Guessing that maybe the crewman was killed on this boat, because that looks, it looks like nothing happened here. So yeah, okay, they died they were on it and they died. Accident happened because Vision skipper underestimated the risk associated with attempting a fast, close pass by the anchored minks, a manoeuvre intended to provide an opportunity for the guests to wave goodbye as the chartered had asked. Vision skipper had also consumed cannabis, which is likely to have impaired his judgment. So we go into here. Vision's surface drive propulsion system was complex to operate, and there were insufficient margins for error in the skipper's plan to allow for any misjudgment, lost control, or failure. And this is the interesting one. The accident took place in an anchorage with a 5-knot speed limit applicable to all vessels. However, and this is a big however, Vision was proceeding at over 6 times that limit. So if I understand that correctly, they were going 30 knots in a 5-knot speed limited anchorage. Now, that is just absolutely insane, and this person deserves to go to jail for a very, very long time. I mean, that's just horrific, absolutely horrific. I mean, 30 knots, you know, what's that, nearly 50 kilometers an hour, killing people. Well, they did kill someone. So, look, you know, that was a collision. So we can put that down to stupidity. But, you know, depending on the skill of the owner, overconfidence, bravado, drugs, lack of regard for other people, wanting to show off rather than be safe, potentially contributors. But you can check out the report there, but horrible, horrible accident. This one's more sailboats, but this is something I want to get into about the ability of yachts to stay upright. Now, this is one of the very basics of seaworthiness, that your boat has to stay above the water and it's got to stay the right way up above the water. Sounds a bit silly to say out loud, but it's very important. And the problem we got today, we have a lot of fin-keeled yachts, and this yacht capsized. Here you can see it. And the difference between, it's a bit small here, you can jump as an upside boat, it's got a large rudder, and the keel is missing. Right. So this is the problem with some of these sailing boats. You've got these fin keels, flat bottoms, you know, they go pretty fast. But the problem is that keel bolts, etc., break over time. You've got a lot of stresses on that point. I mean, you've got maybe like, I don't know, a meter connection there where you've got all the stresses from your bulb keel and the main weight of the boat all going through there. So it's an obvious failure point, and they do fail regularly. And, you know, on a sailing boat, once that's gone, you generally end up upside down, a very dangerous situation, out of control, and cannot be remedied. You need to be rescued. So with the older boats, which were deep, long keels, the ballast is encapsulated in the hull, and that's not going to fall off. And there's a lot of other benefits too. And I think this is for, you know, recreational sailors, something to really consider. You know, a lot of boats are sold because of their features above the waterline. They make them look nice and comfortable and all fancy. But, you know, probably the most important part of your boat is a bit under the waterline, because that's the boat that's in contact with the water. It's going to keep you upright. It's going to affect how the boat moves, etc. And, you know, if you're not racing around the world and you don't need the speed, you know, lose a knot or two and be safe, is all I would say. But again, that's preference. People can do what they want. But, you know, we're going to look at a Northern Marine example in this series, and we'll see, you know, how poor design compensated by ballast can actually lead to quite terrible outcomes. A lot of you probably know that story. So here we go. Catastrophic engine failure resulting in a fire on crew transfer vessel Windcat 8. So this is a commercial one. So if you're, well, unfortunate enough to navigate in the North Sea, where environmentalism means building these horrific structures on the shallow sea bottoms, navigation hazards, to go out there, make the royal family lots of money, your tax dollars funding them, and with a questionable benefit to society overall, even the CO2. Yes, maybe CO2 neutral while they're running, but to produce all that steel, etc., and to service them on diesel boats, I really question the effectiveness of their ability to reduce any CO2. But let's not get into that here. This is a service vessel. Again, you see a lot of them out there. And if you are navigating on North Sea, you need to have your AIS on. You've got to have your your eyes out, because these and the other service boats do move pretty fast. So it's 15-meter wind farm crew, this catamaran. No injuries. There was a fire, I think, in the port engine, but the firefighting system was operated, but it was ineffective because the engine space vents had not been closed. So I'm guessing this is a gas system, and yeah, this is right. So you need to have a airtight engine room for them to work, because it basically starves the engine, the fire of fuel. So for a fire you need fuel, you need heat, and you need air, basically. So if you get rid of one of those, you can stop the fire, or depending on what the fire is. So there was only minor damage. Eventually it was extinguished and ran out of fuel, so they were quite lucky. But again, there was a problem. Either you have to read the report, could be crew training. Maybe they're meant to shut off some air vents before they release the fire system. Who knows? But yeah, no good having that fire system if it's not going to work. Here's another one. This is a really good example, I think, for all of us. It's a fishing boat, but yeah, some people didn't want to be disturbed, and this is what happens. This is after they pulled the boat out. So the boat sunk effectively with crew on board, sank by the bow and foundered while at anchor in Mingulay Bay, somewhere in the UK, I guess. It's concluded the probable cause of the foundering was flooding of the hold. Skipper and crew were all tired and gone to bed in the accommodation, and the hold bilge alarm failed to wake them because the alarm sounder in the crew cabin had been previously disabled. Right, there it is. So what do you want, a good night's sleep? Or do you want to wake up with your boat half underwater? When abandoning the vessel, the crew attempted to launch the light raft. However, the life raft failed to inflate because its CO2 cylinder was empty, which resulted in the skipper and crew having to enter the water. Although they had all donned life jackets, the skipper and two crew became unresponsive through cold water immersion, and were later found face down in the water by the rescue services. So do we know if people died here? I guess face down in the water sounds pretty fatal to me. Before abandoning Louisa, the crew activated the vessel's EPIRB, although UKMCC had received initial alert by 0239. The first request for SAR asset was not made by HMCG, that's the Coast Guard, until 0322. Had the rescue service arrived on scene earlier, it's possible there would have been more survivors. So this looks like a bit of a cock-up all round. There's a number of things. Not one individual led to this disaster, but all together. So if you've got alarms, they need to be on, because you need to, when they go off, you want to know. And first of all, do you have a bilge alarm in your boat? Very useful things. You can even get nows which are connected mobilely. So if your boat bilge fills with water, you get a SMS, then you call up the marina and they can go empty your boat out if needed. CO2 cylinder was empty. You have to read the report to see why. Potentially age, who knows, not serviced. Good question. And then, yeah, having to come into the water, and we don't know what they were wearing. If they had survival suits on a fishing boat, you should have survival suits. But in the UK, and if this is north, especially, it's not going to be long before hypothermia sets in. So yeah, really serious. And then the rescue took longer. So it looks like they took 0239 to 322. That's 21. That's 43 minutes before a request was made. So it'd be interesting to know why they didn't send somebody earlier. Right. So alarms, have you got them? Are they turned on? And there seems to be a bit of a theme on some of these. Grounding of motor pleasure yacht choice. This is a good one. Taking shortcuts. See what happens. So here we need to go to the yacht. Excuse me. This is the yacht. Here, they're on an angle. People being taken off, and so they're on the ground. But look what happened. This is a chart. The deep water, clearly marked, and they chose to take a little shortcut across Blythe Sands. I haven't read the full report. Maybe they've done it before and they mistimed the tides. It's possible. But regardless, they got stuck, had to get rescued. So, only go off the navigable areas if you know the area and you're 100% confident. Personal choice, nothing illegal about it, but obviously sailing into shallow waters can have consequences. So yeah, there you go, there's that one. Grounding of luxury motor yacht Land's End resulting in the vessel sinking. So another navigation one. So the luxury yacht Land's End grounded and was holed on the St. Joseph Reef off the west coast of Corsica whilst on passage in calm weather. So the vessel flooded slowly and came to rest on the reef with the stern still above the water. All passenger and crew were evacuated safely. The ship sank beneath the surface some days later as a result of the weather deteriorating. So good weather, just got it wrong. Chief Inspector Marine Accidents has written to the vessel's owners and master highlighting that the standard of navigation employed was poor. A significant contributory factor was the inadequacy of the safety management system with respect to basic bridge procedures. Concern was also expressed at the management arrangements for the vessels, which did not provide any external audit mechanism for how the ship was run. So, be interesting one to read. So if you're, let's see how big this one was. Date, time, incident, 12 crew, 364 tons. So, this is a RIS. Do we know how big it is? Don't know. Can't see it here. But yeah, this is the thing. I'm a big believer in checklists. Have it written down. Build your checklists. Make sure you follow them, you use them, etc. Memory is good, but checklists are better. If you've got a good memory and a good checklist, that will go a long way. So this is the boat here, the Land's End. Okay, I'm on somebody's webpage now. So it looks like very nice classic motor yacht gentleman's yacht from 1965. Looks like it ran aground. If that's the weather, there's really no excuse. It's a human error, navigational error. And one of the things we should look at is, excuse me, that's another angle. Yeah, look at is, over-reliance on electronic charts. They're good, but always have a paper backup. It's good practice. Regardless, to always have a second source of information just to check your thinking. Especially if you're, sometimes you get confused. I find that I get confused and I need to find a way out of the confusion, and cross-checking information is a really important part of that, especially if it's 3 a.m. on a dark crossing. So yeah, and that looks like the boat. Are we going to be able to see yacht forums? Okay, there's a thread on yachts forum. Yeah, there's a boat. She's a nice looking boat, that's for sure. Sad it's gone under. So, yep, that'll happen. Who knows? Could have been an insurance job. I'm not saying it is, but you never know. So there we go. Look, that's all I really wanted to cover today to get you a bit of an insight into what can happen. And what I'll be doing over the next few weeks is sort of building out a little framework and a bit of structure, a bit of theory, a bit of practice on just things to be aware of, what you can do, how to prepare your boat, how to prepare yourself and your crew, etc., etc. And yeah, hopefully, put the effort in up front, concentrate while you're on the boat, don't relax. Well, relax, but be aware and have a safe journey. So thanks very much, guys. Appreciate you listening, and that's it for now.